spending your Sunday with me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I want to get right into it, okay?
Okay.
Since this is Network While Black, I have to ask you, how instrumental has networking been in your career?
I have to say that networking has been so incredibly important to me in my career, especially as of late working in fashion. So many of the incredible brands that I come across have been through networking. And I think, when I was first starting in my career, the idea of networking was just so scary because no one really defined what it was, right? Like, I think we all have this idea of what networking should look like, but not what it actually is. And so I'd say that I've spent so much of my career as of late really redefining what that looks like. And I now think of networking as connecting. So connecting has been really important for me in my career, I would say, and just, understanding where different people come from, what they do, and you never know who could help you find the next great brand, or just land, your next dream job or role. So I'd say it's been really important for me.
Connecting. I actually love that. Like,
Yeah.
takes more of the stigma out of network
Mm-hmm.
when you're actually connecting and building relationships.
Exactly.
So, how about as a senior program manager, it's your
Hmm.
job to introduce strategic partnerships to Nordstrom. Since joining, you've onboarded over 100 new brands since 2021. Can you speak to us about why it's so important for Black brands to have representation in the department stores?
Yes. Well, I always say that Black people are the culture. We shift culture, we create culture, we define culture. Like, fashion does not exist without us, right? Like, we make things cool, we make things beautiful. You see that with, how like things have been redefined or adopted by certain influencers who are not part of the community and our trends that we've been creating for so long. So to me, it's so important that we have brands that are created by people who look like us, who understand our unique needs, who understand our, hair texture, our skin types, etc., so that we can be our authentic selves. We can show up and feel the best. So that's been really, really important to me. And I think also just understanding that we are not a monolith, right? We all look different. We all have different body types, different hair textures. And so it's important that you have brands that you can shop that understand that. And more often than not, that's going to come from people who look like you. So that's been really, really important. And I think also, I mean, I'm sure you all have seen the numbers about consumer spending, but we spend so much money, right? Like, we love to shop. And so I think understanding how much we shop and how much of a wallet share we have, it's only right that we're able to spend that money with brands who are answering our needs.
Yes, 1000%. Because I heard that I think they said the black dollar only stays in the community for,
Hmm.
I don't want to give the wrong number, but they said for like X amount of days, whereas like
Yeah.
Jewish dollar stays in for 21 days. And
Yeah.
I'm like, we spend so much money, we need to
Right.
in the community.
Exactly. Exactly. It's so true. And it's like, beyond that, our wallet share, when you think about beauty and how we've completely shifted the beauty industry, you've seen how Fenty Beauty like just skyrocketed when it came out. Outside of the fact that it's Rihanna's brand, it was her understanding, okay, I need a shade range that is going to speak to my people. And so I think, just being able to invest in folks if we don't shop within the community, but have to go to an Ulta or a Sephora, it's only right that we're able again to spend that money with folks who are creating products for us.
I agree. And also, like you said, we set the trends because after Fenty came out with that whole shade range, now everybody's
Okay.
all inclusive.
Yep.
You could find your shade everywhere. It wasn't like
Right.
before.
But we remember.
Mhm.
We remember.
Absolutely. Do you think growing up in Harlem surrounded by Black people has made you appreciate and advocate more for us in your career?
Yes, I owe everything to Harlem. I am a very proud Harlemite. I don't know if we have any Harlem folks on the call, but growing up in truly the Black Mecca, right, of New York, and certainly I think honestly the US has really impacted my sense of identity. I feel like as a kid growing up and being surrounded by so many beautiful Black people, but especially Black women, and seeing how they dress themselves and their makeup and just how they presented themselves to the world really helped shape my sense of self.
Mhm.
And I'm sure, you know, a lot of us can relate to then going to schools where we may have been the only one who looked like us, or being in rooms where we're often the only one. And I think being able to have that strong sense of self so early in my life really helped me be able to then navigate those spaces. I always say that my otherness really became like an armor for me. And I really took pride in that in a way, and, you know, used that to kind of combat the fear or the insecurity that came in being mainly white spaces by saying, I'm from Harlem, okay? Like, I know what it's like to be beautiful. I'm very proud of that. And so I've definitely used that to guide me. And I still live in Harlem. So it's always like my sense of inspiration to this day. I love just sitting and like people watching. So very proud to be from here.
So since you are a proud Harlemite and you
Yeah.
on a very important subject, how, you know, being from Harlem, you have so much pride. And now that
Hmm.
you're a Black woman in corporate America, how are you able to show up as your authentic self? You know, of course you're from Harlem, but at the same
Yep.
time, we got code switch too.
Yeah.
Like how can you show up in these spaces and still be you?
That is a really great question. And I think that earlier in my career, like fresh out of college, like many of us, we were really at the point in our lives where we were just understanding ourselves as individuals.
Mhm.
And I think that shift from college to corporate world is really harsh. Suddenly it's like, okay, you're expected to navigate this world that you don't really understand. You know, you're now in these spaces where you have so much more responsibility, and I think that early on, I personally use like style, my personal style, as an opportunity to be authentic to myself. And I also think that that was largely why I sought out more creative spaces. You know, I worked in advertising for many years, now working in fashion. Both are industries that are maybe more welcoming of individuality. And so I would say that just showing up as myself and you know, I would say expressing myself through my style, through my makeup or whatever it might be, allowed me to feel like I was being true to who I was. But I understand that that's not easy and that not every industry allows that. So I think I always look at it as I was hired to be me. So I need to show up as me. And if I'm not able to do that, then this is not the right environment for me. And I think taking that stance individually has really helped me continue to land places where I can be my most authentic self.
So, where do you think we can go, like Black and brown women can go for support in corporate America? Like, who do we go to
Hmm.
advocate for us early in our careers? Because I
Right.
know as a wardrobe stylist, I've been the only Black person on set for a while.
Hmm.
I have like a youngish face. I've been mistaken as the intern.
Hmm.
So who do we go to advocate for us if we're not so comfortable advocating for ourselves?
That is a great question, and something that I'll be honest, I feel like I'm still figuring out in some ways. But what's helped me a lot has been maybe removing the idea that our best or biggest allies have to be people who look like us, and more so seeking out authentic relationships with people. So I'm famous for, you know, when I joined my company, I was like, okay, I really want to try and meet as many people as I can across the board, like inside the walls of the company, regardless of what role they might have been in, and really just setting up time with people and saying, I'm really interested in what you do. Like, I'd love to learn a little bit more about it. How would our roles potentially cross over? How can I help you in what you're doing? And I think doing that helped me naturally build those connections again, instead of networking with folks, but really building those authentic connections and relationships with people where now they're invested in your growth, right? They see that you're invested in them, and they also want to invest in you and help you kind of navigate through the company. So I'd say focus more on building those authentic connections that will then expose the right allies to then help you advocate for yourself, but then also put your name in rooms that you may not be in and that you would never think that they could do, just because they're in a different role per se, but they might be your strongest allies. So that's really helped me.
Were you able to find your mentors when you looked like in places outside, not just, people that look like us,
Hmm.
outside of our race or outside of your field of work? Were you still able to find that common connection and like, hey, because that's huge with Network While Black. Everybody's like,
Hmm.
how can I find a mentor? And child, I'm looking myself. So it's like,
Right. Yeah.
tell us how you can go about.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say that I have one mentor who was actually my former supervisor at one of the advertising agencies that I worked at. And to this day, she's been one of my biggest allies. Like if I need a recommendation, if I just need someone to speak to, she's just been a really great natural ally. I would say outside of work, I really lean very heavily on like my circle of people. All of my friends work in different industries, and I think that's really helped me also grow in my career, just tapping them and thinking maybe more big picture or out of the box of, okay, my friend works in finance. I don't really understand what she does, but maybe there's a connection. Maybe there's something I can learn from that. And I think using that as opportunity to almost become a generalist or understand how, different fields may intersect with what I do has been really helpful. I too am looking for a mentor, but I think mentor is also something similar to networking, where we may have to redefine what that looks like and what we're really looking for. Am I looking for a mentor to lean on because my workplace is challenging, right? Like, do I really just need someone to help me talk through what I'm going through? Or do I need a mentor who's going to expose me to more job opportunities? I think if we get in a place where we redefine what that actually means to us and what we're actually looking for, I think it then helps us identify the right people to fill those needs. So I have, I guess a pseudo mentor right now who works in HR, and I would say I lean on to navigate how to become a better public speaker. And that's simply what I tap her for. I have another mentor who I talk to if I'm going through stuff at work, like how did you navigate as a Black woman being in this role? And then I have friends who I just chat with and I ask them, what's going on in your life? How can I use what you're learning in finance or in strategy and, use that for my role? So I would say that's really helped, is just redefining what that means.
It definitely sounds like you have to be extremely intentional with what you're looking
Exactly.
for, because I think a lot of
Hmm.
people like, hey, can you be my mentor? It's like, but
Right.
what do you like looking to get out of this? So
Exactly.
yeah, I definitely see being intentional. And that leads me to my next question, because you said that you lean on your friends a lot. And I want to
Hmm.
talk about how important it is to network across, because a lot of us think we only have to network up, we only
Yes.
have to go to the higher ups. But a
Hmm.
lot of my friends have gotten me tons of opportunities just by
Okay.
my name in the room.
Right.
They gonna hype me up every time.
Yep.
I mean,
They
so
will.
let's talk to us about how important it is to network across and like with your sister circle and this sisterhood.
Yes, no, I love that. And I completely agree. And honestly, I feel like networking across takes again some of the fear out of networking or connecting with folks. I'm personally an introvert. So I think that networking across has helped me a lot more than trying to network up, because I feel like I'm talking to friends of friends versus someone who's the CEO of their company. And so again, having friends who work in completely different industries than maybe at face value I would ever be interested in, has helped, because, despite working in finance, they may be friends at work with someone who's in marketing or someone who knows someone who's in fashion. So I think networking across, I would say, is maybe almost more important than networking up,
Okay.
because those are the folks who are going to understand what you're going through day to day, but maybe also be closer to the business than someone who's the CEO and has 50 people under them. So I think that that has been incredibly important. And even if things don't always pan out with a job offer, or even, whatever you might be looking for, you always have that connection. And I think it's also maybe more easier to get time with folks who are maybe at your same level, so to speak, than again, someone who is super senior, has a lot on their plate, etc. So I am a huge advocate of that. I'm always trying to create connections between friends or people that I think should know each other. And I think if we do more of that, then we can continue to get our foot in the door of these places. And why I think what you're doing is so important.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's really, with networking cross, you really never know who somebody else knows. Like, I
exactly.
may need, a lead to, I don't know, a shoot or something like, oh, I know the
Hmm.
photographer. And you never know who anybody knows. Like, they may be a peer to you, and then,
Right.
they can hook you up with some ducats. You never ever.
You never know. Yeah.
So being that you're in corporate America, and
Hmm.
I know a lot of us have, company culture, and how important do you think it is to what am I trying to say? How important do you think it is to join the company culture? Like, hey, Nye, we're going out for happy hour. Even though I'm just coming to work just to work and go home, I
Yeah.
also realize that some people that go to happy hour are the ones getting promoted.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, talk about that because as Black people, we have to always be on in the
Yeah.
workplace. We have to be happy-go-lucky. How important
Mhm.
do you think it is to fit in with company culture?
That is such a good question and a tough question,
Yeah.
because I don't know if it's the New Yorker in me, but we can be a little anti. So
Mhm.
I'm always like, I don't need to go to happy hour. I'm here to do my job well. Like, why do you all want to be like best friends outside
Yeah.
of work? It took me so long to understand that. And I think what I've realized as I've continued to try to navigate this is, unfortunately, a lot of that relationship building is so important. And even though it may just look like happy hour, it might be an opportunity for you to build a deeper connection with folks outside of work. So I like to look at it as that versus drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak. But I think even within that, drinking the Kool-Aid has so much to do with being in a workplace that really aligns with your values. And I think the older that I've gotten, the more that I have been intentional in my job search about working for places that align with my values. And in turn, the company culture will be ones that I can drink the Kool-Aid for. And so I think, again, I guess intentionality is the theme of the day. But I think that's really helped me. I do think that sometimes we have to suck it up and go to that happy hour or go to that birthday party, or whatever that just feels outside of our comfort zone. But I think if we are more intentional about the environments that we seek, that will then make that hopefully a little bit easier. So that would be my word of advice there. I'm still working on it myself, but yeah.
It's a work in progress. Because
Yeah.
I'm still working on it to be completely
Yeah.
honest with you. Well, being that you're in charge of the strategic partnerships, I want to
Mhm.
ask, when you're pitching these specific partnerships in the boardroom, do you ever feel like these brands are judged on a different scale than others?
Oh, completely.
That's
And
that was like, yeah.
yeah, and it's really difficult because I think working in a role where I'm responsible for our supplier diversity program. And if you all aren't familiar with supplier diversity, it really is a business strategy that says, as a company, we see value in bringing in diverse brands or businesses. And diversity can be defined a lot of ways, but we are, committed to this because we understand the value that they bring. I think even though that exists, there's still a lot of influence that has to happen to ensure that everyone understands how important it is from a business perspective, but then also how important it is to our customers, right? And I think being a Black woman in this role and having an emotional connection to the work that I'm doing, because it's affecting people who look like me and helping give opportunity to people who look like me, but then also sitting in the position that I sit within the business and having these very difficult conversations and also understanding the climate of the business or the industry, it's tough, to be honest. And so I think that what I'll say is that these conversations never get easier.
Mm,
And what I always come back to, and knowing that the brands are being held in a lot of ways to a different standard, is making sure that every single recommendation that I make is backed with data, because the data is there, right? We have the wallet share, we're spending the money, we're moving the culture, we're setting the trends, and you can't argue with the data. And so that has always helped me feel slightly more comfortable with having these very difficult conversations, even if sometimes I have to close my laptop and go cry, right? So that never changes. And I think it's just by nature of, again, having that emotional connection. But I do think, unfortunately, when the folks in power don't belong to the community, they're not going to maybe naturally be advocates in the same way that I would, which is tough.
absolutely. That I'm fortunate enough that I've been a creative for most of
Mhm.
my career. So certain things I've never had to navigate. However, I do know what it feels like to be the only person on set. I'll give you a quick rundown. I remember I was an assistant stylist. It was a really big shoot. And again, I was the only Black person on set, and I wear my hair natural.
Mhm.
Um, so it was a white hairstylist. I think she was French or whatever. She came up, she said hi to everybody, and she didn't say hi to me, but she reached out and she pet me like a dog. And then I was just like frozen. I'm like, and at the time, I'm an assistant, maybe like 22, 23 years old. And I'm like, do y'all not have manners? Do y'all not
Right.
what it was? And nobody said anything. And I just froze. So like, just having those moments where it's like, all right, nobody is gonna say anything, nobody's gonna speak up. And then also, if I say something, I'm gonna be the angry Black woman.
Right.
Oh, she didn't mean anything by it. But if
Mhm.
I go and pet you, you know,
Right.
how would you feel? You know what I mean? So that goes into my next question because I want to know, how do you deal with the microaggressions without sounding like you are the angry Black woman at work?
First of all, I'm sorry that that happened to you. Violating someone's personal space is a no, right? Like that is just plainly a no. I too have, been in similar situations, and I think maybe what I'm gonna say is controversial, but
Okay.
I am very much a fan of giving the same energy back.
Mm,
And so I remember I was working at a very small agency, and it was mostly white men. And I had my hair braided, and my boss came up to my desk, touched my hair, and then proceeded to ask me several inappropriate questions about how long it took and did my ass hurt from how long it took, and just like very just invasive and inappropriate questions, which everyone else thought was hilarious and just wrote off as he is just how he is. I proceeded to send him an email with a YouTube video that broke down everything about hair braiding and was like, if you have more questions, watch the video. So I'm very much a fan of giving back the same energy that we're given. And I want Black women to start to care less about being seen as angry
mhm.
than allowing people to continue to disrespect and violate us. And I get that that can feel uncomfortable. I get that that's not how we've been conditioned to act in the workplace, but I think there's a way to set boundaries with people and let them know you're not going to touch me, first of all. Certain comments are offensive, they're racist, they're discriminatory, etc. And let them do with that information what they will. But I just am at a point where I refuse to continue to swallow or let certain things pass to make other people feel comfortable and have that weigh on me when they don't bear any of that. So again, that might be controversial, but I just think that we have to put our foot down and stop letting certain things fly just because we are afraid of what that then signals or tells them about us. I much rather be proud of setting boundaries and letting people know, like, I'm not the one to be doing that with. So that's how I would recommend approaching that.
I completely agree, and as I get older, I realize, people know who they can and can't mess with.
Okay.
They know. All you gotta do is put them in a place one time,
One
and
time,
it's
one
like,
good
"Oh,
time.
okay, well, no, she doesn't like
Mm-hmm.
we don't play that over here." Um,
Right.
which actually brings me to my next question. So, when you're in the boardroom and you go
Mm-hmm.
on these brands, right? Have you ever felt like they were trying to be silenced? Well, how am I trying to say this? Have you ever felt silenced when
Mm-hmm.
you're, advocating for certain brands? Like, have you ever been talked over?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Yes. I think, this definitely still happens regularly, but I think advertising was an environment that really, brought out that kind of environment because you have folks in roles who are deemed experts, right? You have folks who are strategists. And so naturally, it's thought that they know everything about the customer. They have the data, they know the brand, so they are suddenly experts on Black culture. We might be tapped as Black employees to tell them what's cool or like what's trending, but ultimately, largely the decisions are being made by white men. And so I definitely felt silenced in those environments, and felt like I was, not that I want to be the authority on all things Black culture, but I'm also like, I also know what's not going to hit, right? And so I think that was very difficult. And I think even in my role today, understanding that other folks are the ones who are making the decision about whether or not we can bring in a brand or whether or not a brand might resonate or does this product make sense for our company. And so I think in having to navigate those moments, I always again kind of bring it back to the data and saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing in the market, like this is what is happening in beauty, here's what's trending on TikTok, like here's what I'm seeing on Instagram. And I think just constantly being vocal and not letting them silence me, but making sure that at least if my opinion is heard one time, like at least I found the courage to say what I need to say and put it out there so that I don't walk away wishing that I had said something. So I think it's just being okay with being vocal, and forcing that room in the conversation if no one's going to make it for me.
I completely agree. You touched on a very good point. A lot of the decision makers are white people,
Mhm.
and I've been learning not to take things so personal.
Yeah.
Because, I feel like I could style an amazing outfit and I know what
Mhm.
people are wearing, I'm on trend.
Right.
I'm like, oh, this gonna hit. And
Mhm.
then, they'll be like, I don't think, our readers will like that. Or
Right.
I don't see, myself wearing it. And I'm just like, it's not your age group, it's not your
Oop.
demographic. You know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
course, the client is always right, but I've been learning like, all right, nah, don't take it personal. It has nothing to do with your skill level. It has nothing
Right.
to do with your talent. It's literally apples and oranges. It's
Yeah.
it's a completely different generation.
Mhm. And I think just quickly to that point, I think what you said is really important. It's not only taking it personally, but I think also feeling like that one time to advocate for it, or maybe that one time where you styled something that you were really proud of was like the only time. I
Mhm.
think I've had to teach myself, like, if this doesn't land today, it doesn't mean in a week or in a month it won't land. So I think we have to also get in a place of not putting so much into that one opportunity, but really thinking like, I know the other opportunities are going to come, even if they don't get it today. And that's really helped me to not feel so like emotionally or personally like attacked by certain decisions that are made.
Well, I agree, but also I've been in a space where I've had like this amazing idea, this amazing
Mm-hmm.
house. They're like they shut it down, but then a few weeks later, someone else.
Oh
Um,
no, see,
that's never happened to you?
I'm sure it has, but
Mhm.
like just hearing it, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm like,
Yeah. And
that
I'm thinking like, did
infuriates
y'all
me.
not
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
I did
Right.
this. I
Mm-hmm.
presented it to you,
Yeah.
and you said no. So I'm like, all right, I just keep that in the back of my head because I'm like,
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't wrong at all.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What is a piece of advice that you can give to our Black and brown women that are navigating the boardroom in, corporate America for the first time and they are the only person there? Like, what's one piece of advice that you can really leave us with?
I would say be confident and comfortable with being you. You are you, and your voice is important. You're in the room for a reason. Be confident in what you bring to the table. 9 times out of 10, you are probably the smartest person in the room. So be comfortable in that, be confident in that, understand that your voice is important, and create space for yourself to be heard if no one else will. And I know that that is intimidating, and I know that that is scary. That is something that I'm still navigating myself. But I think if we continue to force ourselves to be heard and just be confident in what we bring to the table and show up authentically, we will be so proud of ourselves. And that will just be the fuel to the fire to us continuing to do that in the future, versus feeling like we have to dim our lights or fit in this box that has been created by white people, or created by this corporate America structure. So I'd really say just be comfortable being you and understand that you're in the room for a reason. You have this position for a reason, and the voice that you're giving to what you're giving to right now will only create more pathways for other Black and brown women who will come after you.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being here today, Brittany.
Yeah.
I actually want to open it up to the audience. If anybody has any questions, you can write it in the chat or you can raise your hand. Bree, Brianna or Bree said, I love how much you both value networking and connecting with others in your work. What are some ways you've been able to keep in touch, follow up over the years to try to build those professional relationships? Mhm. Good answer.
That's a really good one. Yeah. Wait, do you want to go first?
You can go first. You can go.
Okay. So I would say that I have really been trying to get more intentional about that. And I think as we get busier, it's easy to let those connections die, right? Or like, not check in as frequently. And I think just maybe setting a reminder for yourself, okay, I want to reach out to this person in a month, and just put it on your calendar so you remember to do it. And it can be something simple. Maybe it's just an email and you're just updating them. Hey, since we last spoke, here's what I've been up to. What about you? I'd love to hear what you've been up to. And last time we spoke, you talked about this. How's that been going? So I think allowing yourself or giving yourself that reminder helps to continue to foster that. I think if people are, in your community or, in the city, I also like just grabbing coffee with people. So putting that out there as an option as well. But I think I've also struggled with feeling like, okay, if I connect with someone, I have to have something I'm offering them, or I have to have a great question. And sometimes it's a matter of just saying, hey, I was thinking about you. Like, I'd love to hear what you've been up to, and just letting the connection like naturally continue to grow from there.
I agree. So for me, I'm a big follow-up. I follow
Hmm.
up, follow up, follow up because in the past, I'll meet somebody at an event and we'll follow each other on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
like each other pictures, and then months go by, we never speak again. But we're still following each other until one day somebody decides to unfollow. So for me, I'm a huge, huge fan of following up because, or just liking the picture, engaging.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go for coffee? I have this event. Make sure that you're engaging with them on social media because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer of top of the mind, tip of the tongue. So
Mm-hmm.
I've had people to reach out to me that I've known or I've been following for years, like, hey, so and so is looking for a stylist. And it's literally because we just stayed engaged or, DM. If
Mm-hmm.
you really want to, you could always do a Zoom call. You can always do
Right.
a coffee, like she said, a coffee date.
Mm-hmm.
I like to eat. So I'm always asking
Yeah.
for lunch, little drink.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely follow up. That's my number one thing. So Kiera has a question. What was your biggest obstacle when transitioning from an advertising role to a more fashion-based occupation? Do you think being the diversity in your role contributed to you landing the position? Oh, that's a good question.
That's a whew. Who
Hmm.
was that, Kiara?
That was Kiera Moore.
Good question.
Mhm.
So I would say the biggest obstacle was definitely not having any fashion experience before in my career. I worked retail, as a summer job when I was younger, but never like a corporate fashion role. And so there was so much like new vocabulary I had never heard of and just, ways of doing things that was just foreign to me coming from advertising. And I think I gave myself the grace of navigating that when I first joined and taking my time and again setting up calls with different people across the business and saying, hey, I don't know what this means. Like, would you mind taking the time out to break this down for me and also let me know like how does this connect with what you do, what I do, and that really helped me start to understand who to tap when I needed something or who to tap if I was working on a project that might involve them. So I would say that was probably the biggest hurdle to the transition. I also definitely feel like my race played a factor in me getting my role. But I like to think of it less of like being tokenized in this way and more so thinking about it like I'm the best person for this role because I am a Black woman, right? Like I am a consumer. I know what we like. I know what we need. Like I am the best person to advocate in this specific position. Now, there may be other roles that are within diversity and inclusion where we may have been tokenized or pigeonholed into that I do feel like is wrong. But I think being in this position where I'm advocating for brands or advocating for why this is important to the business, I don't know that someone who's not part of the community could do it as well as someone who is.
I agree. Certain
Mm-hmm.
certain roles I feel like are made for us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Kiera says she loves your response. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for the question.
Absolutely. So does anyone have any more questions before we let Brittany go? You can type them right in the chat. Let us know. Oh, Ashanti raised her hand. All right, Ashante. I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes, you got it right. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Brittany. I loved hearing you talk and the things that you had to say. I'm trying to figure out a question that I hope is worth asking, but I just had experience like as a Black woman, like sending out a lot of resumes, and most of the time I
Mhm.
get like that it was a great resume, like they like what they saw, but most of the time they are like, we're gonna move on to another candidate. And
Mhm.
so I never find that I have to doubt myself. I know that like, there's people who are more experienced,
Mhm.
maybe have like a master's, and they look down on like somebody who has a bachelor's. They're always going to get somebody who's more experienced. But I just wanted to know
Mhm.
if you ever had that experience and what it was like. Um, yeah, I think that's my question.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And I've definitely been rejected in my job search in the past. So I feel like what I try and do, and not every, recruiter or HR person will respond to this, but it's helped me, is in those moments where you may get a no, I think it's totally fair to follow up with them and say, hey, thank you so much for letting me know. I would love some constructive feedback as I, continue my search and helping me with my growth. I would love any feedback you have on, why it was a pass or maybe what I can work towards to be a stronger candidate. Again, you may not get a response, but I think it will help you identify that, actual constructive criticism besides it just being a pass. I think also in those moments of, getting those no's, taking a step back and maybe, again, relying on your community or on your mentors, and asking them for a glance at your resume and the roles that you're applying for, making sure that it's really strong, and really aligned with what the job description is so that it stands out that you are a really great candidate for this, regardless of, bachelor's or a master's degree. So I think just having that extra set of eyes to make sure your resume is as strong as it can be, also really helps. So I would say that would be my advice. I hope that answers the question.
No, that's like the best feedback. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Ashanti. Karen Rhines said, what advice would you give to smaller brands trying to enter more retail spaces or gain more exposure? What helps them stand out?
Great question. I will be honest that navigating large retail, so by large retail, I mean Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, even Target, just large retail spaces for small brands can be difficult and also really expensive. And so I think what advice I always give smaller brands is to make sure that you have a really strong idea of what your brand offering is, who your consumer is, how you stand out in whatever market or, industry that you're in, and use things like pop-ups or even like social media and getting feedback from your customers to make sure that your assortment is as tight and, something that you can be really confident in as possible, so that when you do approach a large retailer, you already have those data points to say, okay, this is my brand. This is my consumer. I have this kind of reach. Like, this is my hero product or my best-selling product. This is my average selling price. Like, all of those kind of metrics are already figured out so that they understand she already knows where her brand is going to sit on our shelf, right? Like, she already knows who's coming into our store to buy her product. So I think taking advantage of those opportunities to get feedback through things like pop-ups where you are selling, where you can get that customer feedback really helps. I also think organizations like the Folklore Group, who Naija mentioned that we're partnered with, allows businesses to be connected with retailers of all sizes. So getting a membership with that as a brand will help expose you to other retail partners. And their team is really amazing about helping mentor brands so that you do know who the right consumer or right retail partner is versus trying to put your brand in every single store. So that would be my advice.
All right, we have time for one more question. And how did you gain confidence? How to show confidence in the workplace and networking spaces? Oh, that's a great question. I want to go with this one too.
Yeah. You want to
Um,
go first?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go first. Gaining confidence. Okay. I am introverted, and a lot of times I will go to an event and I will sit in the corner and watch. Um, Personally, what I like to do, and I've touched on the subject before, I'll wear like a really loud shirt
Mhm.
or, like a really nice coat. I'm a stylist, so I'm always very intentional with the pieces that I wear. And that allows people to come up to me. And, because you can disarm people with a compliment.
Mhm.
Tell someone you like their hair, you like their shirt. Now they're all smiles and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what's your name? You know what I mean? So that always, always helps. And how to show confidence, in the workplace, in networking spaces, I fake it. A lot of times I fake it. Even if I'm not feeling my best or, if I'm really nervous, I'll just leave with a smile and I fake it, honestly.
Mhm.
Fake it till you make it. I don't know if that's like the advice that you wanted to hear, but that's what I do. What about you, Britt?
I'm like +1 to everything because the loud color thing has changed the game for me. I think again, being an introvert, it just allows you to fake it a little bit too, right? Like you show up, you're wearing something that you feel really good in, and then suddenly like it starts to exude from you. So I definitely think that that's something that I try to do as well. And then I think also being an introvert, just setting maybe more realistic expectations for myself in navigating those spaces. So I used to go to networking events and not have an idea of like what I really wanted to get out of it. And I was like, I have to talk to everybody. And so I started giving myself a goal and I would say, okay, just talk to 3 people and that's it. That's all you need to do. And that's okay, right? I think it helps you build that confidence to then say, okay, I've talked to 3 people. I'm feeling okay. I'm not feeling like my social battery is tapped just yet. So maybe I can talk to 2 more people, and just allowing yourself to navigate it the way that feels most comfortable for you versus feeling like you have to do it the way that everyone else does it or the way you feel like it should be done, has also helped me so, so much. So I would definitely stress everything Naisha said and that.
That's actually a good point because I do that as well. Like I'll tell
Mm-hmm.
me and my friend, I'm like, "All right, we got to make 3 contacts before
Yes,
just 3." And I'm telling you, if you make those 3, it doesn't matter who it is. As long as
right.
you make 3 people, you will leave feeling so much better. You don't
Exactly.
have to put pressure on yourself to talk to the whole entire room.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do that. I don't do that. And
Right.
also, if you come to a Network While Black event, we do network bingo. So, it'll get you out your
There we
seat.
go.
Okay,
Yeah, there we go.
shameless plug. Um,
Yeah.
but that is the end of our session and all of our questions. Brittany, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I want to give you a chance to tell everybody how can they find you, like social media
Yes.
handles.
Yes, yes, yes. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to do any sort of like informational interviews or anything like that. I'm definitely always here for that. So feel free to connect with me that way. I am also on IG. I don't use it that much, but I'll drop it in the chat maybe,
Perfect.
if folks want to follow me there.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's Brittany Barnes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you next week. Bye.